What happens when a diner manager humiliates an elderly veteran just for buying a coffee? The town's reaction, sparked by a viral video, turns everything upside down in a way no one saw coming. I've walked this earth for 78 years, and let me tell you, it's a strange thing how a simple act of kindness can stir up a hornet's nest. That crisp autumn morning in Maplewood, New York, I stepped into Harper's Diner with nothing but good intentions. The place hadn't changed much since Emily and I used to come here. Same checkered floors, same sticky tabletops, same faint smell of bacon grease and coffee that clings to your clothes. The jukebox in the corner was still broken, a relic from better days, just like me, I suppose. In my hand, I held a folded American flag, small and worn, the one I've carried since '73 when I left Vietnam behind. It was Emily's idea to keep it close. She said it reminded her of who I was, not just what I'd done. Today, I wanted to honor her memory, to do something she'd have smiled at. I leaned on my cane, the shrapnel in my thigh nagging as always, and made my way to the counter. The young waitress, Kaylee Harper, her name stitched on her apron in red thread, was wiping down the surface, her eyes glued to her phone. She couldn't have been more than 22, with a sharp jaw and a distracted air, like the world owed her something. I gave her my best smile, the one that used to charm Emily even on her grumpiest days. "Good morning, miss," I said, my voice softer than it used to be, but clear enough. "I'd like to pay for that young couple's breakfast over there." I nodded toward a table in the corner where a man and woman sat, their faces tired, their toddler smearing syrup on a high chair. They look like they could use a little lift today. Kaylee didn't even look up. Her fingers danced across her phone screen, and she muttered, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Cash or card?" Her tone was sharp, like I was interrupting her day. "I've heard worse, believe me. Jungle firefights and drill sergeants have a way of toughening you up, but it stung all the same." Still, I kept my smile, reaching into my wallet with the hands that don't move as fast as they used to. I pulled out a crisp $20 bill, the edges still sharp from the bank. "This should cover it," I said. "And maybe a coffee for me, if it's not too much trouble." She snatched the bill like it was an inconvenience, barely glancing at me. "Fine, I'll tell him someone paid. Coffee's $2. She slid a chipped mug across the counter, didn't bother pouring it, and went back to her phone. I stood there a moment, feeling the weight of her indifference. It's funny how the young can make you feel invisible without even trying. I nodded, said a quiet, "Thank you, miss," and turned to find a seat, my cane tapping a steady rhythm on the floor. The diner was alive with the clatter of plates and the hum of small-town talk. Farmers discussing crops, retirees swapping gossip, a few kids laughing over milkshakes. I settled into a corner booth, the vinyl creaking under me, and placed the flag carefully on the table. Its folds caught the light, a small piece of my past that I don't talk about much. I wasn't here to make a scene, just to do something Emily would have loved. Pay it forward, as she used to say. I poured my own coffee from a pot on the counter, the bitter aroma grounding me, and took a sip, letting the warmth settle my bones. That's when the storm hit. The door swung open with a jangle, and in stormed a man in a cheap suit, his face red as a beet. Bradley Coleman, the diner's new manager, had the kind of swagger that comes from thinking you're bigger than you are. I'd heard about him, 30-something, all about efficiency. No patience for anything that didn't fit his ledger. His eyes zeroed in on me, sitting there with my coffee and my flag, and I swear I saw his lip curl. "Hey, old man," he called out, loud enough to turn heads. "You can't just sit there taking up space. You ordered a coffee? That's it? We've got paying customers waiting." The diner went quiet, forks pausing mid-air, conversations trailing off. I felt every eye on me, and let me tell you, it's a strange thing to be the center of attention when all you wanted was to blend in. I looked up, keeping my voice steady. "I'm sorry, sir. I paid for that couple's meal and got a coffee. Didn't mean to cause trouble." Bradley scoffed, crossing his arms like he was scolding a child. "This isn't a charity house, pal. You're hogging a booth for 4 with your little coffee and your whatever that is." He flicked a hand at the flag, like it was some trinket I'd picked up at a flea market. My fingers tightened on my cane, the old wood creaking under my grip. That flag had been draped over Jimmy Larson's coffin, a kid who didn't make it home. I carried it for him, for all of them. But I didn't say that. Instead, I took a breath and said, "I understand, sir. I'll finish my coffee and be on my way." You'd think that would have been enough, but Bradley wasn't done. He stepped closer, his voice louder now, dripping with that smugness that makes your blood simmer. People like you think you can just waltz in, act like you own the place, and expect special treatment. This is a business, not a rest home. The words hit like a punch to the gut. I've faced worse, mortars, ambushes, the kind of fear that keeps you up for days. But this was different. This was my town, my diner, the place Emily loved, and here I was, reduced to people like you. My jaw tightened, but I kept my face calm. I've learned over the years that anger doesn't win battles like this. I reached for the flag, tucking it carefully into my jacket pocket, the fabric soft against my fingers. I stood, my leg protesting, and started for the door. Kaylee, still behind the counter, piped up with a smirk. "Told you, Brad. These old guys always think they're entitled to something." Her words drew a laugh from a group of teenagers at a nearby table, their phones out, filming the whole thing. I saw the glint of their screens, the way they leaned in, hungry for drama. It hurt, I won't lie, more than the shrapnel ever did. I'd fought for this country, carried men to safety, buried friends. But to them, I was just an old man, causing a fuss. As I reached the door, a woman's voice cut through the hum. "Excuse me." It was Donna Mitchell, a nurse in her 50s, her scrubs wrinkled from a long shift. I'd seen her around town, always with a kind word or a nod. She stood up from her table, her face set with a quiet fury. This man paid for someone's meal. He's not causing trouble. Why are you treating him like this? Bradley turned, his face reddening further. "Mind your business, lady. I'm running a diner here, not a debate club." Donna didn't back down. "Running it into the ground, you mean? You don't talk to people like that. Especially not someone who's done more for this country than you ever will." The air in the diner shifted, heavy with the weight of her words. I felt the eyes again, but this time, they weren't mocking. A few patrons nodded. Others looked away, ashamed. I raised a hand, my voice quiet but firm. "It's all right, ma'am. I don't want a scene. I'll go." Donna hesitated, her eyes meeting mine, a mix of anger and respect. I gave her a small nod, grateful, but not wanting to drag this out. I pushed open the door, the bell jingling above me, and stepped into the cool autumn air. "I hope you have a good day, sir," I said to Bradley, not out of spite, but because I meant it. Life's too short for grudges. Outside, I stood for a moment, the breeze brushing my face. The flag in my pocket felt warm, a piece of my past I'd carried through worse days than this. I didn't know those kids had uploaded their video, didn't know it was spreading like wildfire, stirring up folks I'd never met. All I knew was I'd tried to do something kind, and it had turned into a spectacle. I started down Main Street, my cane tapping, my head high, wondering if Emily would have laughed at the irony of it all. The autumn air bit harder as I sat on that worn bench outside the Maplewood Library, my cane propped against my knee like an old friend. Main Street was alive with its usual hum, folks darting into shops, delivery trucks rumbling, a stray dog yapping from the back of a pickup. But I was somewhere else, my mind replaying that scene at Harper's Diner. Bradley Coleman's words. People like you, cut deeper than I'd let on. I've faced worse, mind you. Mortars whistling overhead, the screams of men I couldn't save. But there's a particular sting to being dismissed in your own town, in a place Emily and I used to laugh over burnt toast and weak coffee. My fingers brushed the folded flag in my jacket pocket, its soft weight grounding me. I wasn't angry, not yet. But I felt the ache of something I couldn't quite name. Inside the diner, things were shifting, though I didn't know it then. The air had turned heavy, like the calm before a storm. Donna Mitchell, the nurse who'd stood up for me, sat at her table, her coffee long cold. She was staring at her phone, her jaw tight, watching that damn video those kids had posted. I didn't know about it yet, but it was spreading fast, captioned with some nonsense about an old guy getting owned. Owned, as if a life of service, of carrying men through gunfire, could be reduced to a punchline. Donna's fingers hovered over her phone, torn between anger and action. She'd width 4.0 pt, color #000000. The urge to hit share and make sure the town knew what had happened. I'd always thought of her as a quiet sort, but there was fire in her eyes that morning, and I reckon she wasn't about to let this slide. Across town at the Maplewood Community Center, my old buddies were gathering for our weekly coffee clatch. Tom Reynolds, a bear of a man with a beard grayer than mine and a laugh that could shake walls, was there, along with Sarah Jenkins, sharp as a tack from her Gulf War days, and Frank Carter, a wiry Navy medic who'd patched up more souls than he could count. I wasn't there yet, still catching my breath on that bench, but Tom was scrolling through his phone, his face darkening as he stumbled on the video. "What in God's name is this?" he growled, cranking the volume. The others leaned in, their eyes narrowing as Bradley's voice boomed, mocking my flag, my coffee, my very existence. "That's Walt," Tom said, his voice low, like he was holding back a storm. "They're messing with Walt." I didn't know it, but the diner was turning into a pressure cooker. Bradley Coleman was strutting around like he owned the place, barking at Kaylee Harper, that young waitress with the phone obsession, and Ethan, a nervous kid barely out of high school who'd started bussing tables a week ago. "Keep those tables moving," Bradley snapped, his tie loose, his suit wrinkled like he'd slept in it. "This ain't a soup kitchen." Kaylee rolled her eyes, her phone buzzing like a hornet's nest. She hadn't seen the video yet, too busy texting, but she noticed the regulars weren't as chatty. Some avoided her eyes, their forks clinking too loudly against plates. That young couple whose breakfast I'd paid for had left, but not before scribbling a note on a napkin. "Thank you, whoever you are." I didn't know about that either, but it would have warmed Emily's heart. The video was spreading like wildfire. Jessica Hayes, a reporter from the Maplewood Gazette with a nose for stories that hit you in the gut, was eating a sandwich at her desk when she saw it. She played it 3 times, her eyes narrowing at Bradley's sneer, my quiet exit, the flag in my hand. She grabbed her notebook, slung her camera over her shoulder, and headed for the diner. Jessica knew Maplewood's heartbeat, and this was the kind of story that could wake a town up. I was still on that bench, oblivious, my leg aching from that old shrapnel wound. But I'd decided to head to the community center. I needed my friends, their familiar grumbling, the smell of burnt coffee. It's funny how you crave the simple things when the world turns sour. Back at the diner, Bradley was unraveling. A group of high schoolers in a corner booth were whispering, their phones glowing with that video, now pushing 1,000 views. Tyler, a lanky kid with more bravado than sense, showed it to his buddies, their earlier laughs replaced by nervous glances. "Dude, this is blowing up," he said, flashing the screen. Bradley overheard, stormed over, and snatched the phone. His face went white as he watched himself, his own voice sneering. "This is a business, not a rest home." He shoved the phone back at Tyler, muttering, "Kids and their damn phones. Get out if you're not eating." Tyler shrank, but fired back. "You're the one who looks bad, man." The kid scrambled out, but the damage was done. Kaylee finally checked her phone and saw the video, her smirk fading as comments flooded in. "Disgraceful. That's a veteran. Fire that jerk." She stuffed her phone in her pocket, her stomach knotting. I'd been a joke to her, but now the joke was on her, and it didn't feel so funny. I got up from that bench, my cane steadying me as I started toward the community center. The war memorial caught my eye as I passed, a granite slab with names etched deep, names like Jimmy Larson, who'd shared his last smoke with me before a mortar took him. I touched the flag in my pocket, my fingers lingering on its folds. Moments like that morning in the diner brought it all back, the weight of those years, the promises I'd made to keep going. I didn't know the video was out there. Didn't know it was stirring up folks beyond Maplewood. At the community center, Tom was rallying the troops. "Walt doesn't deserve this," he said, his voice like gravel. Sarah nodded, her arms crossed tight. "Bradley Coleman's always been a prick. Remember when he tried to charge us for the back room here?" Frank, quieter but no less pissed, said, "Walt's got a silver star. They don't know who they're dealing with." They agreed to head to the diner. Not to start a fight, but to stand by me. Tom tried calling, but my old flip phone, a relic from 2005, was off as usual. Jessica reached the diner, her press badge clipped to her jacket. She cornered Bradley, who emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands like he could wipe away the mess. "What now?" he snapped, eyeing her camera. "I'm with the Gazette," Jessica said, her voice sharp as a blade. "Care to comment on the video of you berating an elderly veteran?" Bradley froze, his bravado crumbling. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered. "He was taking up space." Jessica's eyebrow arched. "So you told a man who paid for someone's meal to leave because he bought a coffee? A man with a folded flag?" Bradley's jaw worked, but nothing came out. Outside, a crowd was forming. Locals who'd seen the video, some holding phones, others muttering angrily. Linda Carter, a retiree with a sharp pen and sharper resolve, held a sign, "Respect our veterans." The veterans, Tom, Sarah, Frank, were closing in, their steps heavy with purpose. Inside, Bradley was sweating under Jessica's questions. "Did you know he was a veteran? Did you ask about that flag?" His answers were weak, his voice shaking. The door swung open, and Tom's broad frame filled it, the crowd's voices roaring outside. Kaylee ducked behind the counter, her phone buzzing with notifications she couldn't face. Ethan, wiping tables, watched wide-eyed, sensing the world was about to shift. I was still a block away, walking slow, my heart heavy but my head high. I'd faced worse than Bradley Coleman, but I didn't know Maplewood was about to fight for me. The sun was sinking low over Maplewood, painting Main Street in a golden glow that felt too gentle for the storm brewing outside Harper's Diner. I was still a block away, my cane tapping a steady rhythm against the cracked sidewalk, each step a quiet battle with the shrapnel in my thigh. The folded flag in my jacket pocket pressed against my chest, a familiar weight, like an old promise I'd never broken. I didn't know about the crowd gathering, didn't know about the video that had turned my morning's humiliation into a town-wide spectacle. All I wanted was to reach the community center, to sit with my old friends, share a burnt coffee, and let the sting of Bradley Coleman's words fade. Life has a way of surprising you, though, and that day was no exception. Inside the diner, the air was thick, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Jessica Hayes, the Gazette reporter with a knack for stories that hit you where it hurts, was grilling Bradley, her pen moving faster than his excuses. "Mr. Coleman," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut through his bluster. "You've seen the comments on the video. People are calling for your job. They're saying you disrespected a veteran. What do you have to say?" Bradley, his cheap suit damp with sweat, looked like a man who'd just realized he'd stepped on a landmine. "I didn't know he was a veteran," he stammered, his hands twisting a towel. "He was just taking up space." Tom Reynolds, my old Marine buddy, stepped forward, his broad frame filling the space like a wall. I wasn't there yet, but I can picture him, his gray beard bristling, his eyes hard as flint. "That man you kicked out?" he said, his voice low but carrying the weight of a lifetime. "Walter Thompson, Silver Star recipient. Carried me out of a firefight in '71 when I took a bullet. You think he was taking up space?" The diner went silent, forks frozen, breaths held. Even the kitchen's clatter stopped, as if the whole place knew something big was unfolding. Sarah Jenkins, sharp and unyielding from her Gulf War days, crossed her arms and leaned in. "Walter doesn't talk about it," she said, "but he saved lives. More than you'll ever know, and you treated him like he was nothing." Frank Carter, the wiry medic who'd seen too much to stay quiet, nodded grimly. You didn't just disrespect him. You disrespected all of us. Bradley's face was white now, his bravado gone like smoke. Kaylee, that young waitress who'd smirked at me earlier, was hiding behind the counter, her phone silent for once. I didn't know it then, but she was feeling the weight of those comments online. Hundreds, maybe thousands, calling her out, calling Bradley out, calling the whole diner a disgrace. Ethan, the kid bussing tables, stood frozen with a rag in his hand, his eyes wide, like he was watching a train wreck he couldn't stop. Outside, the crowd had grown, spilling onto the sidewalk. Linda Carter, a retiree with a fire in her soul, held her Respect Our Veterans sign high, her hand steady despite her age. Others had joined her, their signs scrawled on cardboard, their voices rising in a chorus of anger and pride. A news van from the local TV station had pulled up, cameras rolling, catching the raw energy of a town waking up. I was still walking, oblivious, my mind on the community center, on Tom's bad jokes and Sarah's sharp wit. But Maplewood was stirring, and I was at the heart of it without even knowing. Jessica kept at Bradley, her questions like darts. Did you know he paid for a couple's meal? Did you even ask why he carried that flag? Bradley's answers were weak, his voice shaking. I didn't know. I was just doing my job. The crowd outside roared, their voices leaking through the open windows. I reached the diner just then, pushing the door open with my cane, the bell jingling above me. I stopped dead, my breath catching at the sight. Tom, Sarah, and Frank standing tall, Jessica with her notebook, a crowd outside, and every eye in the place turning to me. I felt like I'd walked into someone else's story. Walt, Tom said, crossing the room in 2 strides, his hand heavy on my shoulder. You okay, brother? His voice was soft, but there was a fire in it, the kind that comes from years of standing side by side through hell. I blinked, my mind scrambling to catch up. What's all this? I asked, my voice steady but laced with confusion. I wasn't used to being the center of anything. Never wanted to be. Jessica stepped forward, her press badge catching the light. Mr. Thompson, I'm Jessica Hayes with the Gazette. We're here because of what happened this morning. That video's gone viral. People are furious about how you were treated. I frowned, the word viral sounding like something from a sci-fi flick. Video? I said, my hand tightening on my cane. Frank handed me his phone, the screen glowing with that grainy footage. Bradley's sneer, Kaylee's smirk, the teenager's laughter, and me, walking out with that flag in my pocket. I watched it twice, my face calm but my heart heavy. I handed the phone back, my voice quiet. I didn't come here to make a fuss, I said. I just wanted to do something kind, something Emily would have liked. The room seemed to hold its breath. Linda, who'd slipped inside, wiped her eyes with a trembling hand. Ethan, still clutching his rag, looked like he might cry. Even Bradley couldn't meet my gaze, his head bowed like a kid caught stealing. Jessica turned to him, her voice cutting through the silence. Mr. Coleman, anything to say to Mr. Thompson now? Bradley swallowed, his voice barely audible. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know who you were. I shouldn't have said those things. I looked at him, my eyes steady, though I felt the weight of every year I'd lived. It's not about who I am, son, I said. It's about how you treat people. Any people. I meant it too. I've seen enough of the world to know respect isn't owed. It's earned every day in the small things. The crowd outside erupted, clapping, cheering, some shouting, "That's right!" The TV cameras caught it all, their lenses glinting. Kaylee, still behind the counter, had tears in her eyes, her hands shaking. She wanted to speak, I could tell, but she stayed quiet. Her guilt louder than words. Tom squeezed my shoulder. Let's get you out of here, Walt. Coffee's waiting at the center. But before I could move, the door opened again, and in walked Colonel Robert Mitchell, his suit crisp, a military pin gleaming on his lapel. I hadn't seen Bob in years, not since we served together, but his presence filled the room like a general's. He'd driven from Albany, I learned later, after seeing the video. Walter Thompson, he said, his voice warm but firm, extending a hand. I shook it, a small smile breaking through. I heard what happened. I'm here to set it right. Bradley's face drained of color. Bob turned to him, his tone like steel. Mr. Coleman, I've spoken to the diner's owner. Your actions were unacceptable. You're done here. Effective immediately. A murmur ran through the diner, sharp and electric. Kaylee gasped from the kitchen doorway. Ethan exchanged a wide-eyed glance with another busboy. The crowd outside roared louder, their signs bobbing. Bob turned to me, his eyes softening. Walter, on behalf of Maplewood, I apologize. You deserve better. We're holding a community event next week to honor you and other veterans. Will you come? I hesitated, my hand on my cane. I've never been one for the spotlight. Emily was the one who loved a crowd. But I saw Tom, Sarah, Frank, Jessica, Linda, even that young couple from the morning, their toddler tugging at their hands. I saw the respect in their eyes, the kind I'd never asked for, but felt deep in my bones. I'd be honored, I said, my voice quiet but sure. The diner exploded in applause, folks standing, some with tears streaming. Jessica scribbled, her pen a blur, knowing this would front page the Gazette. The TV crew zoomed in, catching my face, the veterans at my side, Bradley's defeated slump as he grabbed his coat. I stepped outside, the crowd parting like a sea, their cheers washing over me. I didn't say much, didn't need to. The flag in my pocket felt lighter, like it knew the fight was over. Kaylee came out of the kitchen later, her face streaked with tears. She told Ethan, I messed up. I need to make this right. I didn't hear it, but I'd have told her to start small. Kindness always does. I walked to the community center with Tom and the others, the flag on the table as we sat, and for the first time that day, I smiled. Really smiled. Justice isn't loud, but it's real, and Maplewood had spoken.